for settings we used 3 or 4 actual locations, 3 or 4 times the amount of locations used in fellow short films, Speed Bump and Post-it Love. We thought that using more than just one location enabled us to explore more themes such as acknowledgement, change, ambition and supernatural, unlike with Post-it Love and Speed Bump, which concentrate on one main theme, and that theme being love, incidentally. How the themes, we thought that the themes enabled us to appeal to more audiences, a wider range of audiences, and help those audiences understand and relate to the story better. How the locations were developed or settings were developed, well, I think it centres on the feeling of the locations converging or just merging generally. You've got the house, you've got the school and you've got the road as your main locations. The road, for example, where James Peters, the main character, encounters the stranger who gives him the sweets. You know, that road will always stick on James's mind. It'll always be a part of his daily routine, you know, when journeying to school. And the school will always be an integral part of his daily routine as well, or at least for 5 days a week. Plus, the road and the school are actually located quite close to each other, so there's no real distance or isolation. In the story, James's thoughts of when heading to school will always feature that road, whether consciously or unconsciously. The house is obviously the isolated second location, as James will probably associate that with relaxing and just chilling out generally once the day is done for at school. Like, for example, after the scene with the girl and the partner, you know, he just heads off home and in amusement. And what's important about the locations as well is the use of various parts of one location to depict different scenarios. So the school, for example, you've got classrooms where mischief is likely to take place in the absence of a teacher, and where a student normally gets told off. You've got the canteen where the students normally eat and, you know, consume food and drink. And you've got playground as well, and other areas outdoors surrounding the playground, where students tend to have a lot more freedom, and therefore it can potentially get a bit more physical. For the positive and negative, depends what's happening. But the students are vital as well in terms of social realism. Students are either children, young adults or teenagers. James Peters, the girl, the bully and co are your ordinary teenagers, trying to live their lives to the maximum, trying to, you know, be themselves or fit into society and the norms that are in society. And you've got teachers, you've got bullies, you've got peers, you've got love interests. And where are you most likely to find all of that? At school. So we strive to make the story more relevant, as relevant to our audiences as we could.
So now I'm going to talk about characters. Our only significant character in the film is James Peters, who is played by Shay St. Clair. Now, as you can see, James is quite lonely because there's no one there to comfort him after he's teased. No one obviously knows that he's obviously teased and tormented by other people. His family aren't very involved in his life, which can be seen through the fact that they're not even included within our short film. There's no one there to help him while he's getting bullied and almost beaten by tormentors from his school. Now, a real media product that I would compare this to is The Mask, where a character that Jim Carrey plays is seen to be quite lonely because because he doesn't have many friends. It's not really shown in that film that he's a very popular person. As our film is a comedy, you could say that it fits the conventions of a real media product, such as I would like to refer to again, The Mask, as Jim Carrey plays a boring accountant. He plays a very boring everyday man, to be exact, who doesn't have a lot going on in his life. But that changes when he comes across a mask, a magical mask, which gives him a different personality, it enables him to don another personality where he can explore the wilder aspects that are probably inside himself, but he is too afraid to bring out. Jim Carrey also exacts revenge on previous tormentors. However, in most cases, Freeze does not follow the conventions of a regular media product. That being said, because in The Amazing Spider-Man, there's a nerdy young boy who obviously doesn't have a lot of friends and he's bullied. But when he's bitten by a spider and he gets all these amazing abilities, he feels responsible to protect others that really can't protect themselves. Whilst James happily plots to basically commit evil acts like burgling and robbing banks and whatever he can do to basically bide his time and get richer. However, our protagonist doesn't even get a chance to commit these heinous acts, because what goes around comes around, and he's young and he's definitely inexperienced, especially with the power. He should have been more responsible, but instead of being responsible, he got cocky, and that's what happened to him. Frozen forever. We see a type of progress in a way, and it's not necessarily a progression for the better, because you see a shy young boy you see a shy young boy who's been bullied, who doesn't really have a loving family background, and he may be comfortable in terms of finance and everything, but he doesn't have a steady relationship. We see a young, shy boy who, instead of intending to help others and prevent the same things that have happened to him from happening to other people, he becomes a bully himself with cruel intentions, but thankfully is stopped before he can carry out any cruel intention. Freeze does challenge, in some ways, the conventions and codes of a real media product, because he doesn't become good with the abilities he comes across, that fate gives him. He doesn't become a hero, instead he plots to become a villain. Alright, another character that I would like to mention is the shady sweet seller. Now, this character actually uses the codes and conventions of a real media product. From the costume, you can see he's, in a way, it gives off this vibe where he shouldn't be trusted. He's leaning against the wall, holding nothing but the Freeze sweets. There's nothing else with him, just the sweets, and his face is partially covered. The colours of his clothes are dark, and the fact that he just seems to be waiting around doesn't help. It makes him seem more villainy, it gives him more of a sinister vibe.
So the story arc used incorporates a boy called James Peters, who obtains these time suspension powers when in possession of a packet of sweets that were gifted to him by a stranger encountered en route to school. So this James Peters character can literally just freeze any living being around him. When he discovers the extent of his powers with every use, his morals with every use as well kind of alter, kind of twist to the point of no return. For the sweets, our production group designed these sweet wrappers that were placed onto the sweets. The sweet wrappers featured these frosty logos and blue coloured fonts, and we thought that the sweet wrappers helped personalise the film, the characters in particular. So, for example, James Peters can casually look at the sweets and might say to himself or think to himself, yeah, these sweets are mine, and mine only. There's nothing like them out in this world, I'm the only one that has them. So the sweets kind of, enter his world, leading to logical causality being achieved, because let's face it, our ordinary chewing gum or sweets manufactured that are sold in shops, don't have superpowers, and something out of the ordinary has to have that unique element to it, and that unique element takes the form of the sweet wrappers, the frosty logos and the blue coloured fonts. As for the story idea itself, well, we feel that it distances from social realism because the story involves the extraordinary, i.e. superpowers, and fitting a Discovery Rise for Rise Discovery storyline for a new fictional character like James Peters, for example, again in roughly 5-6 minutes. That's a pretty mega job. It's not too dissimilar to further short film 3x3, with 3x3 and 3s involving something beyond human capabilities being achieved. Although you can argue that 3x3 is more humane than 3s because the janitor uses pure intelligence to achieve the extraordinary, and we all have intelligence to some degrees as human beings, as living beings. And whilst James Peters has these superhuman abilities, superpowers to help him achieve the extraordinary. But ignoring that, I definitely do feel that the films do cross over in terms of the theme of accomplishment.